So let's welcome our first Megalithomania 2022 speakers, Peter Knight and Sue Wallace. Thank you.
This talk is about almost our latest book, Albion Dreamtime, where we did things a little bit different. And Sue will introduce, I think, who we are and what we do.
So we are two people with a passion for the earth and for ancient wisdom, just like you. We host wild walking weekends, shamanic gatherings. Can't read it. Trips to stone circles and chambered tombs. And between us, we've been writing lots and lots of books over the years, for 25 years.
But we're also megalithomaniacs. Truly, we've gone all over the world, like a lot of you have, pyramids, Brittany, Greece. Just to say, although we're not going to talk much about megaliths today, we are a little bit, but we are true megalithomaniacs. We truly are. We've been lucky to write previous books. We've been blessed, in fact, on ley lines, astronomy, megalithic sites, symbolism, sacred geometry, all that sort of thing. And I might just give you a little, perhaps, snapshot of what's brought us to this point. So you can see there our book about West Kennet, and it first gives us a clue that sacred sites aren't just positioned willy-nilly on the landscape. They are intricately positioned in the landscape. And you can see because of that there are some astronomical alignments with Orion that I found when I was doing the book. So even today you can go to these sacred sites and experience something that the ancestors felt and experienced thousands of years ago. That's very much what Sue and I are into, and you'll find on Monday's tour we don't just go around saying this is a stone, this is an alignment. We try and get people to actually experience them today. And for me that's the whole point, to be honest. This is a clue to about what I was talking about, the landscape. Here's a picture of the landscape from my book about the CERN giant. And it's nice to know that you're sometimes proven true. A lot of very academic astronomers, weren't they, were saying, oh no, the CERN giant isn't older than the English Civil War. And I'm thinking, what? So of course I gave a lot of evidence that it's Iron Age or Saxon Age. And now they're saying it could be 700 AD. So it's nice sometimes when things are kind of validated. But there's the position of the CERN giant at the end of Giant Hill. Now look at the shape of the hill. Need I say more? Oh, this is our sort of crowd, I can see. I could tell you were people who would recognise a phallus-shaped hill when you saw one. So, and of course the spring is just at the end of the phallus. It's like the water is ejaculating from the giant, from the hill. And if you look right opposite, there's a very pregnant-shaped hill, Weem Common Hill it's called, or Weem Hill. And this is actually, comes from the Old English word for uterus or womb. So opposite the phallic-shaped hill with the giant, you've got the womb-shaped hill. And they're both aligned with the equinox sunrise. Amazing, isn't it? So people were very specific in where they put their sacred sites. And if you're into Orion and a lot of the alignments, of course, that a lot of learned people have suggested for Egypt, and that you'll see that in the Iron Age, on the left, Hercules, the giant, rises over the landscape giant. And on the right, Orion, the stellar giant, rises over the landscape giant again. And this can only happen in the Iron Age. And this is a great way, I think, using archaeoastronomy to date things. So moving on again, when I did the Dartmoor book, and that book is the guide to Monday's tour, I showed how sites are intricately positioned in the landscape. And you'll see there's just a few alignments there of the megalithic sites and the stone rows lined up with the Tours. It seems to be that landscape is everything. And of course they believe that the Tours are where the ancestors reside, where the giants, where the gods reside. So of course by aligning your sites with these sacred hills, then you're aligning yourself with the gods. And in Albion Dreamtime, we do a section on showing this, how sacred sites are positioned with landscape in mind. And Petra Ifran there is in sight of Carningley, the Preseli Hills. And you can see bottom left, Castle Rig, how the megalith lines up with the distant skyline. Can you see the edge of the megalith? And then on the Swin side, the same things happened. And even bottom right, at the hurlers, to me, why the hurlers is there is because of where Stow's Hill is, where the cheese ring is. And you'll see the three circles line up with the hill that you can just see on the skyline. So everything is intricately positioned in the landscape. And this is what's got Sue and I thinking that actually landscape in itself was held as sacred thousands of years ago.
All things begin and end in Albion's ancient druid rocky shore. Wise words from William Blake. And our book, Albion Dreamtime, tells the story of our quest to the original ancient Dreamtime places of this sacred isle.
So our Albion Dreamtime questing aims to see if any of Albion's original sacred places, all of which were wild, such as waterfalls, notable caves, forests, still survived in pristine condition today.
To return to simplicity, get back to basics. Our focus this time is not on stone circles and ley lines. And also to develop an environmental spirituality, because it's really needed right now. Albion Dreamtime also had to be a joint venture, a balance of yin and yang, us, as it is with the goddess, our Mother Earth.
So we sought out the spirit of Albion's hunter-gatherer pioneers, the spirituality of the Neanderthals and the Mesolithic people, and who lived a spiritual symbiotic relationship with the land. These people only took what they needed to survive, a lesson for us all today perhaps. And genetic memories of them sleep inside us all, I'm sure. But from the Neolithic, something changed. People took what was necessary to farm. The fall had begun. So there's plenty of evidence all across Europe and beyond that there was spirituality and shamanism was present in the Neolithic all around Europe and in Albion. There's a lot of evidence now of Neanderthal spirituality, and Neanderthal art has come to rise in recent years. So we quested to see if any of the sacred places of the Ice Age and Mesolithic hunter-gatherers still survived, and could they be experienced today? So farming arrived in the Neolithic, deforestation, the land is now somebody's property. Who said that should be the case? Nature is now something to be controlled. It led to industrialization, the pinnacle of man's evolution on this planet, 5G. And of course, COVID arrived, and with it, Ukraine. All this can be traced back to what happened a few thousand years ago. So people have information overload today, don't we? All the information we need is at our fingertips. But don't you feel, doesn't everybody feel that there's something a bit wrong, a bit broken with how things are running? Hands up. Yeah, the system is not working, and it will continue to not work in an ever-decreasing spiral. So what can we do about this? So perhaps everybody in this room is actually yearning to get back to more original way of being, like we originally were. Because farming and living in one place and in cities is not natural. So as a species, civilization has clipped the wings of our spirit.
So we seek to return to previous ways of perception. We, personally, have turned to the land for solace, for truth, and for wisdom. And climate change is now. The COP conference in Glasgow was absolutely useless, didn't really help much at all. And all our spiritual aspirations will amount to absolutely nothing if our Great Mother is too ill to support us. Once upon a time, long, long ago, there was an enchanted land called Albion. That's how our book starts, because I wanted it to sound like a fairy tale, because this is a fairy tale land that we live in. Albion is a storied land, a land of giants, dragons, the Fae, Arthur, Merlin, Taliesin, and Gwyn ap Nudd. The myths draped across Albion are usually associated with very specific natural places where the land communicates with us. And the Druids, they mainly used natural places, as indigenous people still do today.
So Albion is a land of myths for sure. Giants, Excalibur, Arthurian things. And I think myths are remnants of the Dreamtime. Legends often ring with truth if we read between the lines. And we often follow the clues given in place names and in legend, such as at Lud's Church there at the bottom. So Dreamtime and mythologized landscapes. In all the ancient cultures and indigenous cultures today, they believe the earth was created by gods and creator beings. And the myths are inscribed on the land. And this is a beautiful concept the Aborigines have. It is the landscape that gifts the stories. So when people go into an area, they tune in. They don't invent the myths or the poetry and all that sort of thing. It is gifted to them by the land. What a beautiful concept that is. Geography is imprinted with memory. And the Dreamtime, the Aborigines will tell you, is still now. It is still now today. And we can see remnants of it here. Can you see those figures there on the right and on the left? I mean, look at that. I could kid you that that simulacra is actually in some Aboriginal sacred site in Australia. It's in Dartmoor. So the Dreamtime is all around us now in Albion. So how Dreamtime stories and myths birthed? They could be birthed by simulacra in the faces of rocks and in trees. That one top right, you're actually going to see on Monday's tour. It's a huge, big crone face, about 25 feet high. It could be by sensing the pulse of earth energies, like we do as dowsers, or it could be, of course, through shamanic journeying, which has been in this land ever since people have been here, really.
Ancient people would have had contact with the elementals, who bring spirit to the physical. They would have had daily conversations with the fairies. And natural phenomena, storms, rainbows, fog, what would they have made of those? They were all interwoven into stories. Wisdom from the land is absorbed by osmosis subconsciously. It just seeps into our very being.
So when I first did my Dartmoor book, working in that was really a cathartic experience for me. Dartmoor was where my heart was first fully open to the wisdom and limitless love of the land. That's the only way I can surprise it. In other words, the land had let me in. And how blessed am I? And this was extended in the Albion Dreamtime project. You can see on the left there, called the Speaking Crone. That's on Dartmoor. And it's almost as if it's, about to speak, wisdom. And perhaps thousands of years ago, when the shaman was in front there, was in front of it with a few mushrooms inside him. You know magic mushrooms? I'm sure nobody here is aware of magic mushrooms, are they? Perhaps it did appear to speak. There's lots of legends around the world of speaking stones. So, of course, it's not necessarily what the stone is doing, it's what you are doing to connect with it. And look at these also on Dartmoor, two rock giants facing up to each other. A couple more there. On Carn Bray, there's legends of a giant. We go there, and there's a giant in the rock there. I mean, perhaps this wasn't the origin of the story, but perhaps it perpetuated the myth down into more recent times. And that's on Stowe's Hill on Bodmin, where we're going on one of our weekends this year. The imagination is let loose on a landscape. And on Monday, we're actually going to hear a hound tour on Dartmoor. It's associated with the Bowerman, spectral hounds and the wild hunt. And can you see the big hound there? There's 3 or 4 rocks on Dartmoor, on that particular site, that look like hounds, a big bloodhound. And the sacred horns of the goddess at Hay Tor are visible on the skyline. So what is a sacred site is not always immediately obvious. It's not always immediately obvious. I mean, you look at that one there, can you all see the simulacra on the left-hand side? Yeah, and straight in front of me, my right foot is resting on an altar stone with a rock basin in. And my left foot is resting on this serpent coming out of the ground, which has been propped up so it won't fall by a spherical ball of granite. To archaeologists, this isn't a sacred site, but it is. It is.
We live in a land of dragons. We have 2 drinking dragons here. Top one, the Isle of Man, and the bottom one, Durdle Door, down in Dorset. And the one on the bottom left, that's another one on Dartmoor. And more dragons. We often see dragons when we're coming back from our various quests. They're usually in the clouds, in the sunsets. But we also see them in bonfires, and I'm sure you've done that as well, or just sitting by the hearth, and your imagination goes out to play.
So in Albion Dreamtime, we have caves, 19 of them in our book.
Scary.
Yeah. Sue often had a problem with caves, so I took her in 19 of them. And it was part of her initiation, which she came through with flying colours.
Caves, the places of myths, of dwarves, of dragons, into the womb of the Earth Mother. They're liminal places, places of fear, especially for me, of the unknown. But they're also resonant places. And we learned a lot about sacred sound when we were in those caves. The Ice Age cave, the art is often at the really acoustic hotspots. Very few still in Britain now, though. And later, these properties were replicated in chambered tombs with the carvings.
So we want to share one of the places in Albion Dreamtime with you. It's called Yordas Cave in North Yorkshire. You go into this cave and there's like 2 foot of water, 1 to 2 foot of water, depending on the rain. You can go about 100 meters from the entrance. So this is 100 meters from the entrance. Everything is pitch black but for our torches. The sound of the water is incredible. And there's a little ledge where we know the shamans were thousands of years ago. And up above it are mysterious stalagmites and stalactites above us, like spectral beings floating above our head. Wonderful. And everywhere in Albion Dreamtime you can go to. That was the whole point of our book. We want everybody to go to these places. And you know, we only do this when we know that people were doing it there thousands of years ago. You know, it's like on our West Kennet nights, we don't take djembes, we don't do didgeridoos, but we do frame drums. And we try and be as authentic as possible.
So we soon realised the importance of sacred sound. And sometimes chanting was actually necessary for us to be allowed to enter. We'll talk more about that later. The Aborigines talk about singing the songlines, so sound was important to them, and I think it is around the world still today. You look at that word enchanting, and we talk about enchanting being the word magical, and it's got the word chant in it. So chanting is important.
So there are many watery places in our book, naturally. Yeah.
So there is an enchantment to water. Watery places are often mythical locations. Excalibur, water creatures, Loch Ness, and water spirits, the Grail Knights. Water holds memory, as in homeopathy and the work of Masaru Emoto. And we talk about healing. These watery places are really healing and life-affirming places. We couldn't live without water. These two pictures here are actually of the same river. The water, the River Conway Falls, crashes over further upstream, and then as it glides slowly a bit further downstream into the Fairy Glen, all the froth on the top was actually morphing into all sorts of different shapes while we were standing there. And this place is associated with Arthur and Merlin, so perhaps he went there to get visions of what he needed to do next, because of the froth on the surface of the water was quite magical, very special place.
And we still have wilderness places in Britain for sure. Places in Scotland, Wales, places of Dartmoor where you can actually walk all day without seeing anybody. Yay! So unnerving in their spaciousness, edgy, challenging, out of your comfort zone. And Sue and I have found, if you go just a little bit out of your comfort zone, that's where the magic happens. That's where the magic happens. We often go skyclad, we go in all weathers, day and night. And when we're out in these wilderness places, we feel an awakening of the ancient hunter-gatherer that sleeps, I believe, in all of our DNA. And then fear can be transformed into exhilaration. To seek wilderness, it was once said, is to seek wholeness.
Trees are also included in our book. We included 4 ancient forests of yew and oak in Albion Dreamtime. Trees are so important, they're the lungs of our planet. And there is an enchantment to trees, of course. Mythologies are rich in tree stories. Every culture in the world has some kind of tree in their cultural belief system. We have the tree of life, the world tree, the Yggdrasil, every single culture. And they are also the wisdom keepers, particularly the ancient trees. They pass on their wisdom to the younger trees. So it's no good chopping down in the older trees when you're building a railway, for instance, and then planting lots of little ones and saying that that's going to be okay. It's not. The ancient trees need to be retained to pass on that memory of the land. Trees communicate with each other and us. Their communication goes all around the world via their root system and the mycelium. Incredible things, trees. Very special.
So here's just a couple of examples of some of the forms we found in trees. I'm sure you've all seen faces in the barks of trees. I mean, look at that one on the left. We call it a yew elder. And the little glint in the eye is absolutely genuine. You don't need Photoshop when you do Albion Dreamtime. You can end your Photoshop subscription. Absolutely. This stopped us in our tracks. And this one inside a hollowed out tree at Alton Priors in Wiltshire, which we'll be going to on one of our day trips. You sit inside this 3,000-year-old yew tree and this face is looking straight at you. Absolutely incredible. And the point to that is these things have always happened. So our shamanic ancestors back in the Mesolithic also saw things like this. So was that proof to them that there is spirit present because they are seeing it? So we were compelled by spirit to journey into Albion's original sacred places. But would they speak to us? We felt a sense of urgency that time was running out, and we still feel that today, of course. And the more we left our analytical side behind, the more we were gifted. We were always gifted more than we expected. Poetry, chants, wisdom from the land, and as I mentioned before, often overwhelming feelings of love. So we've made our book very accessible. We divide the country up, and Scotland. We only do the Albion because, of course, Ireland in our olden days was Hibernian, so it wasn't part of Albion. So we've just seen, as we're in the southwest today, there's just an example of one of the maps there, and all the sites, how to get to them, and all that sort of thing there. So we're just going to give you a little flavour for the last half hour, a little selection. We're going to go up the country. Obviously, we can't include 95% of the sites, but we'll hopefully give you a flavour.
Merlin's Cave. Who's been to Merlin's Cave? Yes. And for those of you who haven't, do, but check the tide times first. It's only accessible during low tide. So it's right down on the beach. We checked the time, we went there. And the cave goes right the way through a peninsula and comes out the other side. So there's a wind that goes through, and the light that comes through, and the energies that come through. And we were there, we've been there lots of times. We were there doing some drumming one time. And Pete was gifted what he was told was the dragon's heartbeat. So if you hear that, there's a dragon around.
Or it's me in there.
Or it's yeah. And as we came out of the cave, we noticed this in the side of the cliff. That's about life size. It's a quartz dragon.
There's its head, there's its eye. It's almost got a slipstream, can you see? It's almost got a slipstream going around it. And we'd been to Tintagel Beach many times before, but of course the dragon had tuned us into it, and we reveal this. And it's actually a big block of quartz, and it's actually coming out in 3D relief. It's right next to the beach, under where the walkway sometimes collapses. So please look out for the dragon next time.
Not always visible, depending on whether there's been a storm. This is Thurleston Arch in South Devon, the site of a Mesolithic forest.
That's easy for you to say.
No, it's not. And this is another place that we visited that you have to check the tide times. You can only access it at low tide. And we'd spent a long time going out there, paddling a long way through all the rock pools and the slippery seaweed. Beautiful rock pools. And we spent quite a bit of time there, tuning in to this amazing arch that must have been there thousands of years ago, a very special place. And you can see I'm standing right underneath the arch, deep in the water. And it was at the moment of low tide. Everything was completely still. It's very magical. And then we suddenly noticed that the seaweed started to move again. The tide was coming in. Better get back to the shore. So we picked our way all the way back to the shore, amongst all these rock pools again. It probably takes a good 20 minutes to paddle along back to the shore. And then as we got back to the beach, we turned around to take another look at the arch, and this is what we saw. A mist had rolled in. We saw nothing at all, just a mist. So this is when we got back up to the car park, up on the cliff, and you could just about make out the top of the arch above the mist. The dragon's breath, no less.
A magical moment. So Wistman's Wood, some of you might have been to on Dartmoor, very ancient oak forest, dwarf oak so that they can survive on the forest, and the whole wood, several acres, is jostling for position with the granite clitter. It's got folklore of the wild hunt. We go there on some of our Dartmoor tours, and we go there for rituals. There are overhangs where we do drumming, and we've had some magical experiences in this beautiful place. I recommend you all to go. And I wanted to show Sue this triangular stone that I felt was a portal, which has been stood upright in the wood. And I'd had many experiences there in the past. But your attention, Sue, I mean, talk about Ents. It was drawn to this tree here, wasn't it?
I had a little conversation with this tree because I could see on the side of its trunk a very distinct face. The eyes, the nose, but no mouth. And I thought, why is that then? And it's because the trees can't speak for themselves. That was the message I got. We have to speak up for them. Stop everyone cutting them down. Trees are so important to us.
And on that day, I actually sat against that triangular stone, as you can see, but the message I got was this. This portal is not an entrance to another world, rather a tool to open your heart in your world. And that's the whole point, isn't it, of all this, I think. See if we can change ourselves and change our world through the work we're doing.
When we were first discussing the idea of doing this Albion Dreamtime, I said, okay, top of the list, Lidford Gorge. This has been my special place for well over 30 years. Who's been to Lidford Gorge? Oh, not many. It's a magical place. Deep, steep-sided valley with lots of trees going right up to the heavens, with a river running through it. Big waterfall at one end, the White Lady Falls you see there, and another waterfall at the other end. They're called the Devil's Cauldron, where the water has worn its way through the rocks. Very special, magical place, and it's on the St. Michael line.
I love the saying about rivers. A river always seems to know where it is going. Isn't that lovely? We can't always say that about ourselves, can we? So we do some night visits. Sometimes we take our groups, our Dartmoor weekend groups, to Lidford Gorge, and they are very, very special. You can paddle in the water at the base of the waterfall, and you always get the feeling that you're being watched. And when we go to any watery place, we always stop and give a water blessing.
We always thank the waters, because water is so special. If it wasn't for water, there would not be life on Earth. So we really need to respect and honour the water that is here, stop polluting it. So we always say love and gratitude for our water. And here I was, praising the waters, paddled in, but I screamed. And Pete said, "What's the matter? Is it cold?" I said, "Well, yes, it is cold, but it was more than that. It was the pain of the water I was feeling. It was actually coursing through my body. We need to respect the waters of this world."
So coming a little bit nearer, this one is probably about half hour from where you're sitting. Avalon's Hole in Borrington Combe in Somerset. All the locations to all these places are in the book. And it's actually a Mesolithic cemetery. There aren't many Mesolithic sites that you'll find are actually called a cemetery. They're quite rare. But people came into this cave, went down about the 45-degree slope, as you can see, and the acoustics in there were incredible. But we thought, why have they chosen this cave to be the cemetery and not hundreds of other Mendip caves? I mean, the Mendip's really like a big Swiss cheese. They are just so full of caves and holes. So we flashed our torches up above. We often flash our torches to replicate natural flames, which would have been the case in ancient times. And when we looked up and shone the torch up, we saw this. Ooh. And that's about actual size, actually. Floating about 10 foot above us is what we call the cave spirit. And it's probably been there since Mesolithic times, because the cave is now dry, and it has been for some time. And there's all these spirit shapes on the wall as well. The crystals and mineral deposits are all doing weird things. So is this the reason why this particular place was chosen by the shamanic people in the Mesolithic to bury their dead? So King Arthur's Cave is another place we go to. I know Andrew Collins, if he's here, I know he used to do some questing there many years ago. And so we were drawn here to the Forest of Dean. It's an incredible place, a main cave with several side, very dark chambers. And it's an Ice Age site. It has Arthurian and Merlin folklore. We're not just drumming in the place of the ancestors. We've often felt that we're drumming in the presence of the ancestors. And we always ask permission to enter when we go to places. And sometimes it is denied, like the particular time we went here, Sue.
We went here a few years back. We'd driven 2 hours to get there. And as we're approaching, as always, I stand and say, "Is it okay for us to enter?" And the spirit of place said, "No." You know, oh, 2 hours. What are we going to do now? So I thought, okay, accept that. And I just said, is there anything that we can do that would make it okay for us to enter? Waited for the answer from the spirit of the place, and it said, "Sing to me." Well, I'm not a great singer. I don't know many songs, but I just sort of started to hum a bit, thinking that something would happen. And it actually gave me a tune to sing. Completely unique to that place. Sang it for a few moments, and it completely changed the whole feel of the place. It had been feeling quite a bit foreboding, a bit dark. And it completely lifted the whole atmosphere. So, had it tuned us in? Had it changed the vibration of the place? I don't know. But I know that it's really important to do. And this has become important wherever we go. And we've found that every place has its own tune, completely different tune. And it might even have a different tune that it gives to you to sing, because sometimes it's different depending on who the person is.
So in studies of prehistoric cave art around the world and across Europe, a lot of archaeologists have said that in ancient times, perhaps the cave walls weren't solid rock, they were actually membranes through which you could coax spirit to come through, and I like the idea of that. And this is the side chamber at King Arthur's Cave. It's a pitch black chamber, but can you see the images on there? These are totally natural, but again, were these regarded as evidence of spirit of place? You can see there's a creature here with a tail and 2 legs, but the front of its body is gone. It's disappearing into the cave wall, and they found this a lot on the prehistoric rock art in Europe. So we often go our separate ways when we're at a sacred site. I think it's important for us to tune in. And this is what happened on one of our journeys. We'd growled bear growls, we'd howled like wolves, as you do. Perhaps their spirits still linger there. And then we have a quiet time. Sue goes off into the dark chamber and gently drums and chants, while I sit in the main cave and tune in. Almost out of frustration at King Arthur's Cave, I said, "Arthur, are you here?" The reply was immediate. "I, Arthur, am here, and will be as long as you remember me. For I am actually the spirit of the land, the spirit of Albion." My heart opens as Sue continues to chant and drum, unseen in the other chamber. "What should I do?" I ask. "Do as you and others are doing, for as long as people re-enchant my name out on my sacred land, then one day the spirit of Albion will surely rise again." "Thank you," I said. And at that very second, I kid you not, in the other chamber, Sue stopped chanting and drumming. So I think she had been the voice and the drum that had awoken spirit, and I had merely been the scribe. So in the book and on one of our tours later on the year, we're going to take people to waterfalls you can actually stand behind. I cannot explain the exhilaration of this. And of course they are shamanic sites. You know that thousands of years ago somebody was standing in exactly the same place having an initiation or a rite of passage.
This is a wonderful place in the Brecon Beacons. Do I dare attempt? Squid ear era.
That's not bad.
There's something. Squid. Squid. Thank you very much for that correction.
There's always a Welshman in the room. Squid.
It means something about the waterfall of snow, I think. So we were here on 2 different occasions. As you can see, one of them was, I'm wearing a T-shirt, so it was summer, and it hadn't been raining an awful lot. So it was quite easy just to sidle along behind the waterfall and enjoy just a little bit of a spray. It was very pleasant. But the second occasion when we went, definitely winter. I think it had been raining constantly for about a week beforehand.
It rains in Wales.
And it was thundering over this waterfall. But still we sidled along and we got absolutely soaked. But
Fantastic.
It was really exciting, really exhilarating, really gets the adrenaline going. I mean, you know that it would have been a shamanic place many years ago.
So we'll just see if we can activate this video. Oh, hello. No, let's try again. Let's try.
Sound?
Yes,
Preferably, if you can.
Is there a mini jack plugged into your headphone socket there? On the
please. No.
Right, let me just do it.
If I just get it to work, that's probably enough. There we go. We're off. That's okay.
We can hear it.
Faintly hear the sound. That is a crashing roar. We rarely drum at waterfalls. You can't compete and wouldn't want to. So there are 2 waterfalls in our book in South Wales that you can go and drum in, that you can go and stand behind. Please do it. This is going straight up to North Wales now. We've had to miss out a lot of Welsh sites. This is the Devil Gorge in North Wales. I think this is really a doorway to Anwen. I mean, as you approach the entrance, it kind of draws you in. It kind of sucks you down into its... and you go in and there's a 45-degree slope. And the echoes are amazing here.
It's like a cathedral.
It is like
it's incredible.
we haven't even got to the bottom of this cave yet, and it's open like our other sites all the time. And the acoustics are amazing. We actually timed an echo here at 4 seconds. Now, that may not sound very much to you, but 4 seconds is a long time. So we're going to go back here and see if we can venture more into the cave. Here's Sue tentatively coming down the 45-degree slopes. Looking for fallen rocks, fresh fallen rocks, which I assured her there weren't any. It's all about initiation. This was going on there thousands of years ago. Joseph Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek. It's about going beyond that comfort zone again to where you're not happy. Do you remember in the second Star Wars film? Guys, do you remember during the second Star Wars film where Luke has to go into the cave? And he asks Yoda, he said, what's in there? What's in the cave? And Yoda says, only what you take in with you. So this thing called fear is only between your ears. It doesn't live anywhere else. So shooting up to the Midlands now at Dovedale, there's a place called Reynard's Arch with caves behind it. I mean, this is Dreamtime, isn't it? This massive arch in Albion that you walk through. And when you get to the top of the probably 50, 60 degree slope, you come to this cave. Can you see? This yawning mouth and eyes like a dementor. How amazing is that? This is Dreamtime. And there was an elongated head there. It's a natural locality, but I thought this is a dry cave and has been for thousands of years ago. Was this once the centre of rituals there? So another place we go to in the book is Thor's Cave. I mean, this is like going into the belly of the carcass of a dragon. It's ginormous and it's open all the time, 15 minutes walk from the car, in the High Peak in Staffordshire. Ice Age and human remains found there from the Ice Age right through to the Bronze Age, so we know it was a ritual site. There's all these side chambers. You can explore it for ages. But the nerd in me spotted that during a second entrance, at the side, the sun will come through there at midsummer. only for about 10 days of the whole year. And we were there just after the midsummer. So I thought, and it's going to go into this side chamber. So I thought, we wait and we wait and we wait. You know, like Indiana Jones when he's in the map room and he's waiting for the sun to come in and show him where the ark is. It was just like that, the tension, you know, and eventually the sun comes in and illuminates the whole of this side chamber. And it was quite amazing. But while we were waiting, actually, there is a little bit of story to that, isn't there? Yeah.
This was during the drought a few years ago when a lot of the moors all around that area were actually on fire. So it was really desperate that we needed some rain. So I thought, well, who better to try and call upon was Thor. So I was just drumming and calling on Thor, oh Thor, please bring us sweet, gentle rains. And a couple of days later, it did actually rain. Available for sun dances as well.
Yeah. So again, the last thing, as the sun pours into the chamber, gradually as it sets and it moves around, the arc of the sun gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the last thing that it lights up at the end of its summer solstice sunset is this pinnacle of rock with this white rock shining on the top. So we're going back here this year to investigate that. But as we do this, you know, thousands of years ago, somebody else was also standing there at the midsummer sunset experiencing a similar thing. And that's Albion Dreamtime. And they're all over the place. This is near Leek in Staffordshire. And I mean, look at this. It's just a millstone grit outcrop. But you can see the outcrops there, you know, and these have looked like this since prehistoric times. Millstone grit is incredibly hard. And this one here is about 20 foot high. He's kind of got a bit of a fag or a spliff coming out the side of his mouth.
I call it Buddha on a bad day.
Yes, I like that. And Simulacra Central, well, that's Brimham Rocks. I mean, you go around, there's about 20, 30 rock outcrops on the top of this hill. Again, very hard rock. They've been here since prehistoric times. The bear, the bottom right, we call the dragon's skull. Absolutely incredible. And you know our ancestors were there thousands of years ago. There's lots of little holes and nooks and crannies for me to crawl in. Top left is called the Druid's writing desk.
But I think it looks more like E.T.
Yeah. Perhaps the ancestors were phoning home, in a sense, yeah. The bottom one here, and this is actually a 200-ton rock balanced on 18 inches of softer rock. I kid you not, no Photoshop. So I said to Sue, we need a good shot, can you go underneath? And she did. It actually looks like I'm pushing the rock over onto you. I'm not. I'm keeping it safe for you.
Yes,
I'm stopping it from falling over. So again, what have our ancestors made of this? If I bought an Aboriginal from Australia and put them there, they would see that as this is Dreamtime today. Another place of ancient remains associated with St Cuthbert. If a saint ever went and hung out in a cave and a shelter, you know, he's seeking kind of a shamanic journey in a way, isn't he? This is up in Northumbria. It's supposed to be haunted and has devil folklore to it. A big rock shelter. So an incredible place in the woods. We felt we had to go in through this side door here. And when we got there, you can see there's a thin crevice. And when you went to the other side, look at this. Can you see it? Like a sleeping dragon with nostril. So Dreamtime is everywhere. You just have to change your mindset. But when you go underneath the rock shelter itself, you get that.
Ooh.
We call it drumming the dragon. The dragon's claws are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And all this is in Britain, a few hours from where you're sitting. We're just going to do a place in Scotland, so I don't upset any Scots people here. There is a whole load of people in places in Scotland. This is called the Praying Hands of Mary in Glen Lyon, associated with Finnan, a giant, and there's ley lines going to Stafford and all over the place from here. There is a debate whether that's a natural, erratic, peculiarly dropped there, or else whether it has been erected by people. And if we go on to the next one, you'll see it's actually aligned with this very pregnant hill, which marks the equinox sunrise. So, sunset, thank you, Sue, thank you. And there's me dowsing the energies. David Cowan has done a book that takes in this rock. Very powerful sight. And not quite sure what Sue's doing there.
I'm tapping on the rocks. You can see it's very laminated and it had lots of air pockets behind it. So I was just playing a bit of rock music.
Don't encourage her. So we give you a short flavour, really. We just want to sum up with some important concepts. The first half of the book really is about looking at landscape difference, looking at it how we once did as a species. Once everybody looked at the landscape in the way that we've been describing to you. So it's about connecting with the land from the heart. And it's all about intent and respect. When you go to a sacred site, it'll scan you in seconds. In fact, before you even got there, it knew you were coming, because you've set up this psychic and energetic link with the site. And, we find the more we go with the intent of giving to the site, the more we are given. Yeah, and it's, sometimes we have to leave this beautiful thing between our ears, put it into the back burner and feel it with our heart. And always challenging ourselves to go beyond our comfort zone, which is often where the magic happens.
And to receive the land stories, just to sit quietly and listen, not with your ears, but with your heart. You will receive messages. Be part of the environmental awakening. Do your bit. Do your recycling. Be really gentle with the earth. Get involved in rewilding, planting trees, organic farming. And do we need to question ourselves? Should we be flying? How much should we be using our cars? Should we be eating meat? Being aware of single-use plastics. We really need to look after this mother.
Because our ancients did thousands of years ago. So we set out, we sought the Dreamtime sites to receive, and we often receive those fleeting moments of gnosis, those whispers of Gaia, we call them, when outside becomes inside. And to feel the bliss, the sensuality, and the caress of pure love that comes from a deeper connecting with the land and its sacred sites, its monuments. And we have been shown that there is often a difference, there surely is, between knowledge and wisdom. Oh yes. And we also etch our own stories as we all go onto the land. We etch our own stories onto the land to become part of mythologies, to become part of its stories. So perhaps one day the things that Sue and I have done on the land, somebody else will tune into thousands of years' time. So we all leave part of ourselves on the landscape. And to send out our love, always, and sometimes even a simple honouring is enough. We don't have to go there with the intent of receiving something that'll start another religion. God, no. So just go to honour the place. That is usually enough.
Take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints.
So at this pivotal time of climate emergency, we are being called upon to heal the land. And if we can, then, just perhaps, there may be hope after all. For people will fight to protect that which they love. From the moment as a species we regard the earth as sacred, we won't have to worry about the earth, because we'll have crossed that threshold. Whether we'll get there or not, I'm still on the fence about that. So personally, we don't waste time on what we cannot change in the world.
But we're passionate about what we can. That's why we're getting the message out to as many people as possible.
We don't get into conspiracies too much. If the conspiracies exist, perhaps conspiracies are a conspiracy. When you get into conspiracies, your energy seems to come down and down and down, and you're more depressed, you're gnawing about it. So I think the best way of healing the earth is not to get into that sort of stuff, but stay in the love. And the best love that we know surely is in the land. So join us for our weekends and day trips, dowsing, shamanic, experiential, mindful, and we also have silent walking. We hope to see you on Monday's Dartmoor tour, where we'll be taking you to some of the sites that we've seen. We'll be at our stall all weekend. Our books are here by sheer coincidence. It's amazing how often that happens. And they're all reduced this weekend. And just before we go, we just want to talk about our latest book, which actually was birthed during the first lockdown. We were all locked away in the first lockdown, the only true lockdown, wasn't it really, let's face it, and wondering what to do. And I was sitting in our little stone circle in the garden one day, and I was told you've got to write a book called Sensing the Earth, and you've got to invite wisdom keepers. So we sent out 50 invitations, 52 actually, I think, invitations to knowledgeable people in their field to ask us to write a book about a chapter about their work, and also how we can move forward in a post-COVID world, if there ever is one. There's some famous names there, as you can see. They all contributed. Paul Devereux, Hugh, Paladin Jenkins, Tor, Kathy, Maria Wheatley, Christine Rowe, Gary Bilcliffe, and many more. So it's a beautiful book, and again, also on offer this weekend. So please come and have a look at it and have a chat with us on our stall. So finally, I'll say in front of the conference such as this, what is the point in researching ley lines, ancient cultures, ancient technologies, unless we are going to do something meaningful with what we find? And for us, our chief motive is now healing of mankind and the earth.
Culturally, just because the path mankind has walked is well trodden, doesn't mean it's the right path from now on. So let us all walk in peace across Albion's sacred land of dragons. For the dragon is not only in the land, the dragon is the land. And within our hearts we hold the mysteries of the past and the future. When we send out our love to the earth, we receive back love unbounded.
Thank you very much.